What on earth is a Hugelkultur, I hear you cry? Well, think of it like a raised bed. So in this picture, you see all those three scenarios are pretty much identical in content. They're just different in shape. So on the right hand side, we've got a traditional, what we would think of traditional raised bed in the Western world. You've got your wooden slats on the side, you build a box, and then you fill it up with usually compost, vegetable matter. So a Hugelkultur is essentially that, but in a big mound. It's self supporting, so you wouldn't need the boxing around the side because it's like a hill shape. But and also the difference would be that it's not like compost in the sense that it's already rotted down. So you start off with large logs at the bottom. So if you look at the diagram at the bottom, it shows all the content. You've got logs and rotten logs and wood. You throw those in at the bottom. Then you build up with some sort of green material, green leaves, cuttings, things like that. Then you top it off with manure and green waste. So that could be like grass clippings, something that's not dead essentially. And then you top it off with some of the soil that you've extracted from the hole, or in the case of the Hugelkultur at the top, you're going to have to find that soil somewhere because you see we haven't dug down into the ground. But I'm sure that's not a problem. You can skim it off somewhere else. You only need like 1 or 2 inches on the top of topsoil. And the difference is that it has all this dead, rotting material in it. So it's a constant long-term food source for plants. It acts like a sponge as things break down. They allow more water to get trapped inside the pores. It obviously is an attraction for insects. Woodlice like to eat the timber, which attracts more predators. You've got loads of earthworms in there. It is essentially a giant living compost heap, and you then obviously see you plant your plants on top. I should just quickly point out that this is actually not a compost heap, though, even though I've been saying something like that. A compost heap gets very, very hot, especially in the summertime, and most plants are not going to like sitting in that. Their roots are going to just burn. I wouldn't say no plants like it. I have seen somebody growing, I'm pretty sure, potatoes and squashes in them, in a fairly rotted down compost heap. But in any case, because you have all those logs and other things that take a very long time to break down, it does not heat up anywhere near like a compost heap would, which would get to something like 60 Celsius. This is not going to be like that. It's going to be a very slow rotting down process. So you've got no worries about planting any plants in this, and they should look as beautiful as they do in this picture. Now, one of the final benefits of doing a Hugelkultur over a raised bed is that you get a much bigger surface area. So although plants will not grow sideways, they will always grow up, you still get that bigger surface area. And I've tried to highlight that in these blue lines. So you can see with the Hugelkultur, it's got a longer blue line because it's got a bigger surface area. I'm sure you can get your heads around that one. And then we move to the solution I came up with, which was the hybrid. I've not seen anybody else do this. I came up with it all on my own. I am so clever. But essentially, it's just a Hugelkultur buried in the ground. And the reason I did this is because I knew I wanted to plant grapevines. And I figured they would probably want to send out their roots pretty far. I'd imagine in the Hugelkultur, I don't even know if it would withstand the grapevine for a number of years before it really sort of packed in solidly. And also, if the roots want to spread out sideways, if it's in the ground, it can pass out of the Hugelkultur and into the surrounding soil. So that is the reason I did that. And in the upcoming video, you will see that I actually have some woven borders around the raised bed. Now, they were there beforehand. I do it more for decoration than anything else, but I did want to come up a little bit higher above the ground with the soil, and it's not going to be big enough a mound like the Hugelkultur to support itself. So it needs something. I just wanted to do it out of natural looking materials, so that's why I've done that. So here's my Hugel bed. Well, it's basically a raised bed. You can see I've got all these raised beds here, but I've done that one there, and this one I'm just starting now. Turn them into Hugel beds because I'm going to be planting grapevines on the top, and this is very, very shallow soil, very clay soil, and once you at that level there, you can't see it now because I've walked mud all over it, but that is pure clay, as in yellow clay. Let's have a quick look here. So really, I mean, you can, you know, do the no dig method and add mulch and everything, but it take years and years to probably break it down, planting potatoes and everything. But that's what we're digging up. This is going to help tremendously. So you're going to need a pickaxe and a shovel. Just dig the trench till it's about, I assume a shovel spade is about a foot. So I'll just do it a little bit more. It's probably what, a foot and 3 or 4 inches. And then I'll get on to the next stage. Okay, so it's fully dug now. Probably take me about 4 or 5 hours, I suppose. So if you're not used to digging, I do a lot of digging, so if you're not used to it, allow a day. And what I've done is I've separated out so this is sort of the topsoil here, and this is the actual pure clay that I've been digging out. I don't want to put that back in. I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet, but you can see you need a lot of space. Soil tends to expand, what they say, up to about 6 times when you pull it out of the ground, so you've got to factor that in. But anyway, on to the next step. Right, the next step, which is the fun part, well, I shouldn't say fun, I mean less painful and boring, is to take a pickaxe and churn up the bottom of this solid clay bed just to give the plants a bit more of a chance. And then as I'm going along, I'm laying the biggest logs I've got, which are about 4 to 6 inches in size, in diameter, can be any length obviously. I got those from local tree surgeons and neighbours who chopped down trees, giving them away. Obviously they can be any size you want, but I just found those to be manageable, and I just picked those up in my car and brought them here. So once I've laid that down, I'll start layering up in smaller and smaller pieces. I've got bay, oak and cedar. The bay and the oak are fine. You know, ideally you want hardwoods, which will take a long time to break down, last a long time. The cedar, it just happened to be some wood I could get hold of. It is resinous, acidic, typically something you wouldn't want to put in the soil. Most plants are not acid loving, but I'm planting grapevines along the top here, and grapevines like acidic soil. Having said that, I really don't think it's going to make any difference, because from what I've read, clay soil, this is really heavy clay, has a high buffer, which means that no matter how much, unless you really put in a lot, like lorry loads of acidic material, it's not going to change the pH that much. It's important to soak every single layer, and just to note that I've added some rotten old wood as well with the logs, and just giving everything a good soak in, then I'll put the next layer on. I don't know if you can tell here, but I've just shifted a load of soil on top of those logs and tree branches now. I've never seen in any description of a hugel where you put soil back in at different levels. You only put soil on the top, but not that it really matters. I mean, I don't know what the pros and cons are. Obviously you're not going to have as many air pockets, but you still have a fair amount. And at the end of the day, what am I going to do with all this soil? I mean, there's several cubic meters here, so I can't get rid of it, so most of it's going to go back in there. It's just the clay I'll keep out, do something with that. So this next layer is, I've put bags of leaves, and now fresh grass clippings without seed heads, and manure. And the reason you're adding manure and grass clippings, or it's important to do so, is because it's high in nitrogen, and you want to balance out all the carbon, woody material, the dead material in there as well, dry dead material, with this fresh stuff. Obviously compost from your compost bin, garden waste, vegetable waste, all that sort of thing should be thrown in as well to get a good balance. And again, soak it all down, and we want to keep it moist for the bacteria and other organisms to start breaking everything down. So here is the final hugel bed. Put the final top layer of soil back on, dug my pathway back out again down there, and I've put my 2 posts and stakes in for my grapevines. But that should, in theory, allow the plants to grow much better. Anyway, we'll see. But what about all that waste? What about all that waste clay? Well, in permaculture, as you know, there's no such thing as waste. It's a resource. So we have to treat it as such and find something for it to fulfill. We couldn't even get rid of it even if we wanted to. This is an allotment. We wouldn't be able to get a skip down here if we wanted to chuck it in, and it would be very, very un-permaculture-y, if that's such a word, to just bag it up and take it down the dump. It will be removed. It can't just sit there. Obviously, it's in the way. So we're going to bag it up and put it to one side, and when we're ready, we'll use it as a base for something. I've done this a few times. You can just smash it down into the ground and put some slabs on top, and then you put your structure on top, maybe a wood store or a greenhouse. Failing that, you can make some pottery out of it. I mean, that's probably never going to happen, but you know, there's probably a few things you could do with it other than it just getting in your way or taking it to the dump. Anyway, guys, I hope this has been useful and explained to you the benefits of Hugelkulturs, and if you've got the energy, just dig a big hole and get on with it.